Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my Cipro recovery, the backdrop of this coronavirus and the quarantine that we're all going through. I've been making a lot of music videos over the last year. I did start playing guitar, and I had played piano for a long time, for like 20 years. I started playing a string instrument recently, so I appreciate you bearing with me and being patient, because I know not everybody's trying to hear the music videos, and that's cool with me. Cipro is still a big story in my life. It's still a big part of what I've become. So I'm making this video today just to check in with everybody. I'm coming up on 2 years. Next month, May, will be 2 years for me. So I'm at about 23 months right now, right at the 2-year mark. Probably many of you are wondering, as I had when I had first been poisoned, how long is this going to take? And I didn't want to hear that it was going to take a year or 2 years or 3 years. People talking about years just didn't compute for me because I couldn't comprehend it, because I was suffering so badly and had lost so much of my function. So there's good news and bad news. I mean, the bad news is, yes, I am still dealing with Cipro, with recovery, with the symptoms of Cipro, with the damage that it caused. What am I dealing with? Well, the good news is, however, that the intensity of the symptoms, a lot of the symptoms have disappeared, and the intensity of the symptoms that linger is decreasing. So I am continuing to improve. That's the good news. But back to the bad news. What symptoms do I still have at 2 years? I still have occasional brain fog. My vision is not as good as it was before Cipro. I picked up some floaters, and my nearsightedness did get a bit worse. I have passed optical exams, and I mean, it's not like I'm blind or anything. I can still see okay. But I lost a lot of the precision and clarity I had in my distance vision, and I picked up a lot of floaters from the Cipro. And when it had first happened, I think it happened so quickly, and there was so much more going on, though, those first 3 or 4 months, that I didn't realize, how much my vision had been affected. So yeah, the floaters are very annoying, and because a lot of the other symptoms have gone away, it's something that kind of plagues me every day. It's something that I just kind of get used to dealing with. It was hard at first, getting used to the floaters and stuff, but usually I get used to it. When I start getting mad about it, then I start focusing on them and trying to chase them away with my, with what I'm looking at. It just makes it worse, and I get myself all caught up in this pointless loop. I mean, they're there. It's the way it is. The only thing that I know, or that I read up on to treat that with, is like these vitamin C eye drops. Again, with my videos, I'm not selling any products. I don't work for any companies. This is just my own personal sharing. Usually I don't even show the products that I have. This is a liquid MSM. They're drops. It has like vitamin C and some other stuff in it. It's supposed to help a little bit. I don't think it's really done much for me, but it does like lubricate my eyes a little bit, and it helps it because not only was the floater, not only were the floaters there, but I think it had some autonomic nervous system damage, and that means sometimes that they get very dry. They're not tearing up as much as they should, just as a regular maintenance. They dry up sometimes also. So all that combined aggravates me sometimes, and I found these drops. I mean, to deal with floaters, you're talking about, surgery, retinal surgery, which is in itself very dangerous, to go in there and like laser beam the floaters out. And that's not something that I'm interested in right now, because it's not that bad where I'm willing to risk that much. And that's where I'm at with that. And there is a retinal detachment warning on the Cipro box, because that's all connective tissue up in your eye, and whenever your connective tissue is disrupted in some way, you can have issues with your vision. So that persists. Still have a lot of the tendinopathy down in my ankles in particular. I mean, it's multi-system, and it's body wide. I mean, I have joint pain and tendinopathy shoulders, wrists, ankles, pelvis. I still feel it. Don't have the muscular strength quite that I had before, and I may never be that strong again. I mean, I don't think physically I'm ever going to be the same as I was before all that happened, because I was in very good shape, and I prided myself on that. I took very good care of myself physically and had run, half marathons in my late 30s, weighing 230, 240 pounds. I lifted a lot of weights. I'm over 6 foot. I was a pretty good sized guy. Played sports all my life. That's probably never going to come back. So that's a hard pill to swallow. But it's getting better. As my muscles come back, I've gained about 30 pounds back. I don't know what that is in kilos if you're watching from Europe, but I had lost about 60 pounds within the first 2 months, which was about 20% of my body weight. Just skin and bones. People that knew me didn't even recognize me. I'd lost so much weight. I've gained about half of it back at 2 years, and a little bit of chub, not too much. I don't think. I still try to be as active as I can. I've gained half of the weight back. I can't run like I did before. I can't lift. I still don't really lift weights yet. I'm still skeptical, moving very slowly. So physically, if you had to ask me and peg me down, where are you at with it in comparison to where you were before it happened, I'd say I'm at about 60%, 55, 60%, which, and I try to give these percentages in my other videos. It's just a rough estimate, but that's coming back from a reduction, to 0 or 1% when it first happened. I mean, I was totally destroyed physically and mentally and spiritually, to the point of nothing. I mean, I had almost no function whatsoever. At one point, I could barely even go to the bathroom, and if I could crawl there, my bowels didn't even want to move. It was awful, and you can watch some of my earlier videos if you want to hear the stories from early on with me. So 55, 60%, I'll take it. I'll definitely take it because I can get up and move around. So tendinopathy, neuropathy yet in my ankles, pins and needles, tingling, kind of electrical sensations. I still get those fasciculations sometimes, body wide, anywhere. The little kind of jerky, fluttery, glitchy. The fancy word is fasciculation. So I get those. Those can be anywhere in my body. Usually once a day or twice a day, I notice some fasciculation up in my cheek or in my arm, and I never had stuff like that before. It wasn't. And if I did, it would be from a targeted group that I was lifting on, not just random throughout the day. In my face or somewhere in my shoulder. It doesn't make sense. And you can watch it happen. You can watch your muscles kind of quiver. Well, that's some kind of nerve damage. So I don't know exactly what I'm dealing with. It seems to be getting better, and the doctors weren't much help, even though I did have a good neurologist. I'm not really dealing with them any more than I have to at this point because they failed me totally. And in many cases made it worse because they created more psychological pain and suffering and anguish. Because not only did they not help me, they turned it back on me and denied that Cipro could have had anything to do with it, which was absolutely ridiculous. That's what happened to me. So still a little bit angry about that. Try to let it go, Talking about my physical symptoms. So some of the nerve stuff, the fasciculations, the neuropathy, particularly in my ankles. I think that of all my connective tissue, my ankles were hit the worst, both of my ankles, left and right. The peroneal and Achilles tendons were very bad. Couldn't walk initially at all. I was not on my feet for about 5 weeks. Literally not on my feet at all. I was scared to death. It was too painful. I was too worried about tendon rupture. So I crawled for the first 5 weeks until it began to get into my wrists and my shoulders at that point. And that's when I had finally given up and gone to the hospital and had that whole experience, which was, if you want to hear about that, it's in other videos. Didn't really help me, didn't really do anything for me. They just housed me for 6 days and tried to get me up on my feet to do therapy when it was just beginning and my ankles were totally destroyed. So it was absolutely ridiculous, my treatment. But never mind that. I'm coming up on 2 years. neuropathy, the fasciculation, some issues with vision. I still feel like I have food allergies that I didn't have before. My gut is not nearly as sensitive as it was when it first happened. When it first happened, my gut was totally destroyed. Like like I said, multi-system. So my gastrointestinal tract, my gut, stomach, intestines, moving bowels, that was all completely disrupted in ways that I've never ever experienced in my life. Um, I take good probiotics. I don't currently have any because of the quarantine. There's a good health food shop near where I live. I'm in the Youngstown, Ohio area in the east coast of the United States, not far from Cleveland and Pittsburgh area. Um, and I buy a lot of supplements on Amazon, but everything's closed. A good probiotic will help you move your bowels, and it does make a difference. I did take probiotics early on and throughout my recovery. I have loosened up a little bit on the supplements because I am doing so much better. But a probiotic is something that I frequently go back to, and it makes a difference. Not selling any brands, but you get what you pay for with probiotics. You need like a good 10 or 15 strain. The price range varies from 30, 40, $50 a month, for a 30-day supply. It's worth the money, especially if it's early on for you and your gut has been hit. I recommend a probiotic, really for anybody, honestly. For general maintenance, people should be aware of what they're eating, but the probiotic. Other symptoms, can't really think of anything outstanding. I still get fatigued easier than I feel like I should, and I don't think it's just because I'm not as in a good a shape as I was before. Feels like there's some chronic fatigue and just like a sensitivity to pain that I didn't have before. I didn't even really pay any attention to pain. The psychological effects still linger. I mean, it was severe trauma to go through this moment to moment, day to day. This was extremely traumatizing, and I have made videos about PTSD. Pharmaceutical induced trauma. Having a severe reaction to a med. Cipro is not the only drug that causes reactions that people have these nasty um, uh, results from. Excuse me. So I mean, you get what I'm saying there, right? But the med causes some kind of a reaction where you become afraid of your own body, and you're scared if your heart's going to stop, or you don't know what the hell is going on. Your anxiety is through the roof. You can't walk. You're afraid of tendon ruptures. You can't use your hands. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with something, or for some of us, something was wrong with everything. That causes a lot of trauma. So what I'm saying is that 2 years, although I'm doing much, much better psychologically, I still deal with the outcome of that, which has been good for me in some ways, in an odd way, because it's caused for me to let go of a lot of the things that used to matter to me, including in some ways my own identity. And I don't want to get too psychological here, but I've learned how to let go and accept things in ways that I never had before. I'd never even known was possible. Um, but you still play along and go to work, and if you're fortunate enough, you become strong enough again, and you go back into the community, which I've done. And I have a job that I'm thankful for, and I've met some really good people there. I've been working for about a year. Now I work with disabled adults and intellectually disabled and autistic adults, and we have residential homes and community services, etc., and so on and so forth. I provide clinical and behavior support for these people. So the good coming through some kind of suffering like this is that it makes it even easier for me to kind of connect with and be empathetic with people that are suffering in their own ways, people that are frustrated through their impairment, through their function, their intellectual function, or their physical functioning. It's provided me with a space for compassion and connection that, even though I felt like I was compassionate before and I had a big heart because I was doing this work years before, social service work, it opens up even more space to be present with people and get out of your own way. So that's been the good that come from it mentally. But, the negative is that it's still, when you have the trauma and you generalize it into your life, then you can be triggered really by almost anything. So it's a practice every day to work on that. and find people that understand what you're going through, and you'll get through it. You'll be okay. Trust the process, and let it happen. And you are where you are. You are when you are. So, what other symptoms am I having? Well, clearly I can still grow hair, although I think I lost quite a bit of hair from the Cipro experience. I feel like it just generally it accelerated my aging rapidly. In days where people would age in months or years, I feel like I was aging like that in a day. You know, so that was terrible. But then on the flip, I'm recovering. So even though I'm 41 years old now, every week, every month, I feel like I'm getting some of my youth and my strength back because I'm actually recovering from it. And it's really a good feeling to come back into your body and have function again. And there are days when I feel really good and I have started to run again. And nothing like I have before, but I can run and work up a sweat again for the first time since it happened, really pushing 2 years. I can exercise again. My joints and my body, my connective tissue is starting to come back, and I hope that that continues. And as long as you don't push too hard, which is for some of us very difficult, because before when I had pain, that was a signal to me that I was doing something right, and I would keep pushing because that's how you develop strength. But with this kind of an injury, it's paradoxical. It's the opposite of that, because with this kind of injury, if you're experiencing pain, you better stop and slow down. So that's where I've been with my physical recovery and my mental recovery. What does all this mean in context with the coronavirus? Because this is April, I think 14th today, 2020. We're going through this coronavirus. I do work. I mean, you might consider me a frontline worker. I work with our individuals. I'm in the community. I've been to the hospital. I'm in group homes. I'm around people more or less on a daily basis. I wear these masks that were provided to us. I have the hand sanitizer stuff behind me. I have gloves. I'm washing my hands. I'm taking all the precautions for the virus. Don't know if I've had it or not. I'm assuming that I haven't. I haven't really felt any symptoms, but according to what the news says, we can be asymptomatic and carry it. So I've just taken all the precautions that I possibly can, and I go to work, and I'm careful around other people, especially the higher risk, such as the older folks. I'm always wearing a mask. What does this mean though in context with Cipro recovery? Well, I don't know about you, but it scares the hell out of me because I can't help but think, geez, if I get this corona stuff and I'm still trying to bounce back from Cipro, that probably wouldn't be a good combination. Yeah, so there is an increase in fear for us that have been poisoned, because we know that there's feels like there's things wrong with our body, even if we're recovering and we're strong and we can work. You still have that lingering thought in the back of your mind, what if I get this stuff? Well, the answer to that is I don't know, because apparently the coronavirus is different for everybody that gets it. And the expression of the Cipro poisoning was different for everybody that gets it. So who knows what it could do. I wish that I had some help or advice to give you, but if you don't need to be out and you're recovering from Cipro, especially if it's early on for you, I try to think back to when it first happened to me, the first few months, and the idea that I could catch a virus while I was destroyed from Cipro simultaneously would have been a nightmare within a nightmare. So you need to keep yourself safe if this has just happened to you as much as possible, and make sure that the people who are taking care of you, if you are to the point where you can't get to the store and take care of yourself right now, like I was when it first happened. I couldn't drive or walk for the first few months. If you're at that point, you need to make sure that the people who are around you are sanitized and safe and wearing a mask, because if they're going out into the community, they can bring it back to you, even if you're not. So I'm not trying to spark up a bunch of fear. I think that globally, this is not that significant. But then again, if you're somebody who catches it and it wreaks havoc on your body or it kills somebody, then obviously it is very significant, and it is a genuine threat. So you don't have to live in fear of it, but keep yourself safe, keep yourself distanced from people. You don't need an additional virus while you're recovering from Cipro. That would be incredible. And I don't think a lot of people who are severely adversely affected by fluoroquinolone, um, they may not be able to bounce back. You need to be very, very, very careful about that. You don't want this shit. Um, so I don't really know what else to share. My videos used to be a bit longer. I feel like I have more information about the supplements that I was using and the treatments that I tried or the doctors that I had tried. I do still have appointments arranged with a neurologist, but they're follow-up appointments. I mean, I don't have any kind of ongoing treatment right now. They weren't a lot of help, and I kind of realized that painfully early on. It's something that you're going to have to get through a lot on your own, and if you can afford it, there are various treatments that are supposed to be very helpful. Oxidative, glutathione IVs and things like that can increase the oxygen level in your system, that will help improve and heal, the damaged parts of your body and the damaged systems. I mean, I don't know a lot about all that. At one point I was using the BPC 157 for my tendons, my ankles in particular. That's all available on the internet, and the information is available on the internet. They prescribe it in Canada for tendon issues. It accelerates healing, and it's backed up by clinical research. I know there's a lot of scammy stuff, but the BPC 157, this peptide, was very effective, and did help, I feel, accelerate my tissue improvement, my connective tissue improvement. I don't use it currently, but I'm trying to think. I really only bother with a magnesium on occasion, magnesium glycinate, and vitamin C. I take my vitamin C religiously. I do drink a bit of wine. It's antioxidant. And I will say that I'm noticing after all this time that my diet, if I really loosened up my diet, because when it first happened, you can watch some of the other videos, I was very careful about what I ate, and I didn't really do carbs and gluten, bread products, processed food, sugars. I avoided all that, and I mean literally avoided it like the plague for the first 2 months, because it felt like it was necessary. My body was telling me it was necessary, and I think it did make a difference. What I'm noticing now is that I can't eat bread and, bad food again, pizza and fries, junk food. I don't make a habit of it, but I do. And once in a while I'll get into the candy or the ice cream or something, or some M&Ms or some kind of junk food. And I notice that when I eat a lot of the sugary foods that I experience more tendinopathy for the same level of activity when I hadn't really noticed any. So I think that eating a lot of sugar, taking on a lot of carbohydrates, pasta, breads, processed foods, canned raviolis, frozen pizzas, junk like that. I feel like those kinds of foods are necessarily not good for your body um, anyway. But if you're recovering from something and there's some kind of an autoimmune effect or a neurological effect, you have connective tissue issues where inflammation plays a role in the expression of symptoms, then the ingestion of foods that are known to perpetuate and moderate levels of inflammation, such as processed foods and breads and gluten producing foods, then you need to avoid them. And I'm noticing that when I do splurge and enjoy those kinds of foods, that sure enough, I feel sore for a few days. My joints hurt. My ankles start flaring up again. So, watch your diet. I think it seems obvious, but I think it's critical and very important that you watch what you eat. I think I preach that in all of my videos, and while I don't always follow it, when I notice that I'm going too far off the mark there, then I get back in line. And watch what you eat. So where are we at here? Well, it's April 14th, 2020, amid the coronavirus. Not going to talk too much about that. You guys have probably heard all about the news. My heart goes out to you out there if you're suffering through Cipro. Um, if it's the acute phase for you, this has got to be an extra special nightmare. And, there are people who care, people you can connect with. I do have friends that I still talk to that I've known now almost since it happened to me. A friend of mine in London, and I don't think it quite affected him physically as bad, but he had a lot of the brain fog and the mental and neurological, psychiatric effects, the anxiety and the brain fog and spacing out and disassociation that are all known to go along with those are psychiatric side effects to the med. As you know, this drug does pass into the blood-brain barrier because of the fluoride molecule attached to the quinolone. That's what makes it so potent. It can reach every system in your body, including your brain. And so he's doing pretty well. I mean, he's still making a recovery. I don't think either one of us feel like we're ever going to make a full recovery, but he's younger than me. And, he's bouncing back. And then a friend of mine named Anna, who is in Germany, she's younger than me also, about 32, 33 years old right now. She has a child. She has a documentary that has recently been made about her and her experience. She's been going through it now for 5 or 6 years, whereas I'm only at 2 years. And she had taken a lot more of the fluoroquinolone. She had taken multiple courses, and I think that it's worked its way into her neurological system. She has a range of central nervous system issues. But if any of you are interested, I can link the video to her documentary below. Another very tragic story. So I guess where I'm going with that is that I connected with people who are going through this online. I have come across a few people, locally, and people that I don't preach about this too much. I'm aware of it, but I'm not overzealous about it. I see that people are prescribed ciprofloxacin. I urge them to be cautious, strongly cautious, if it's prescribed simultaneously with glucocorticoid treatments, steroid treatments, because that's a no-no. That's what happened to me, and according to the FDA handouts from years ago, those drugs are contraindicated, and they will amplify the effect of connective tissue damage, 4 to 5 fold, if I recall, times 4 or times 5, according to clinical research from the 90s on mammalian tissue. This is not a grand conspiracy. The research is there. We've known for a long time that fluoroquinolones are dangerous drugs, and they're particularly dangerous when they're given to older or younger populations, or when they're given to people who are also being treated with glucocorticoids, steroids. This is all laid out in literature and in the FDA handouts about this drug. I was prescribed Cipro while I was on steroids. It was known to the prescriber, urologist, physician's assistant, that I was on steroids at the time. I had literally showed visually the steroids to him in the office and written it down on paper when I was there. And I was given the fluoroquinolone anyway. Didn't think anything of it at the time, and I didn't have much medical history for 20 years. I was a very healthy person. I was blessed. I was very careful about meds in general. I don't think I'd had a pharmaceutical med in 20 years. But this all started because I had idiosyncratic pelvic pain. It was unspecified. They thought maybe there was an infection, even though my culture was negative. And he put me on a course of fluoroquinolones just to be safe while I was treating with steroids, because that seemed to help with the pain. And that was when the explosion happened on that first pill. So that was my story. Again, I have a whole range of videos you can watch going back almost to the beginning, when I was strong enough to crawl out of bed and sit in a chair for an hour. At that point, sitting upright took all the strength that I had. I'd lost so much weight and so much strength, and it was so painful that to crawl into a chair and sit for an hour was literally all I could do. And I tried to help the only way that I could at that point, and that was to make videos about my experience. And I have left them up, and they are still posted, because I feel like it's important to keep this message out there. This needs to be spread. I feel like, I don't know how many years it's going to take, but eventually this is going to come to light about these fluoroquinolones. It's just that with the pharmaceutical industry in this country and the way that whole thing works, they're still profiting greatly from throwing this stuff out like candy, and they're not taking the proper precautions. They're not recognizing people who are having these reactions, and it's absolutely, it's a crime against humanity. It's a moral obscenity that these things are happening, and if you're very angry about it, I think that you have every right to be if you've been damaged by these drugs. So we'll see what happens moving forward with it. In the meantime, all we can do is try to provide what glimmer of hope there might be, and acceptance of what has happened, and information about it. And your story does matter. It does matter. And the more this that gets out there, the more awareness is lifted, and then we can start to put pressure on the people that are making the drug. We put pressure on the people prescribing it. We put pressure on the people who are treating us when we've had an adverse reaction. It will have, I hope, a snowballing effect. That's why I continue to make these videos, because I feel like it does have a good effect. And if nothing else, it lets people know, like you, if you're watching this video and you're going through Cipro, that you're not alone. And I've been there, and other people have been there where you are. And for some of us, it's absolutely as bad as it is for you, if not worse. We've been through it. And some of us crawled out of that dark place, literally crawled out of it. And it takes a long, long time. So all you can do is just accept where you're at and deal with it from day to day. And hopefully you have a support system in place where, you know, you can heal in an optimal fashion, as opposed to, well, who knows what can happen. I mean, it destroys you. It destroys you physically, mentally, financially. But my heart goes out to you if you're in that place. And that's why I make these videos, because I've been there. And I'm getting better. That's the message. I'm at 2 years. I'm recovering. I'm getting better. And I was destroyed. 0%. I'd say 1%. Totally destroyed. And I'm recovering. And it's taken a long time. But here I am, 2 years later, with my fantastic beard. You know you love it. All the gray I attribute to Cipro, because even though I'm 41, this all came about very, very quickly after that experience. The trauma and the suffering and the anxiety and the worry from it got a lot of gray that I didn't have before all that happened. So I'll probably shave it for you for next time. But it's been cold up here this winter. I'm in eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania area. I wish that I had more to offer. People reach out to me in comments. They find me on Facebook, and I do make an effort to respond to you and to provide any help or information that I can about my experience and my recovery. You know, I'm not giving people medical advice per se. I'm telling you what worked for me, and what my experience was, and maybe what to look out for and be aware of along the way. So I hope you folks have a good afternoon, and God bless you. Thank you for staying tuned to my channel, and I promise to make more of these videos. If you're here because of the Cipro